Hey, everybody, and welcome to the HERstory Collaborative. My name is Jen Buck, and I'm your host here in the collab. Now, you know, I'm all about advocating, activating, and amplifying high-performing women, and that's what the HERstory Collaborative podcast, webcast, and television show is all about. Trailblazing women who are changing their little corner of the world. Now, I got to tell you, I'm really excited about my next guest, Desiree B. Stevens. Now, we met online. She is someone that I followed because she is making such big waves in the world of racial equity, decolonization. She is saying it like it is. And she's become someone that I host a weekly sort of room with, if you will, on Clubhouse, but it's also a learning space. It's a place where we bring white women and Black women together. And it's all about building bridges and understanding the experiences so we can do better. So while we met online, we've become friends and partners, and she's someone that I admire so much. Let me tell you a little bit more about her. She is a decolonization spiritual counselor who creates communities that support the unfolding and unlearning of how we became who we are as a society. It's her goal to create true intersectional spaces that allow each of us to see the humanity in each other and create liberation from oppressive systems. She is an absolute badass. I know you are going to love her. This is going to be a longer episode than it normally is because I cannot imagine doing this in 30 minutes. So buckle up, get ready. Welcome to the collab, my friend Desiree.
My goodness. Thank you, Jen. That was absolutely amazing. I don't even have like a really in my mind. I was thinking about things to say back, but I honestly feel the exact same way about you. You show up and it's so beyond the idea of like performative allyship. You show up in real ways in every single aspect of your life. And that is super important to me. So I value your friendship. I value working with you. I value this time and space in your podcast. So thank you. Thank you. I think I'm supposed to say like, hi, I'm Desiree B. Stevens. You can find me at DesireeBStevens.com if you want to know more about me. But like, honestly,
we will get there. You're so
that's
funny.
amazing.
You are so funny. You are seriously one of the most important, impactful, inspiring. There's a lot of eyes happening here, but
Wow.
Women I've met in a very, very, very long time. And I connected you and the previous owner of that title, who still sits in that space, but now she's got you there too. So I connected you and Tina Michelle because both of you women have really changed the way I not only see the world, but also how I show up in it. And I question my own actions, and I'm learning and digging deeper in who I am. And I love that you two now, these two powerhouse women that have changed me so greatly, you're now working with her, right?
Absolutely.
You guys are going to be doing some work together.
Yes, we are. And I love Tina Michelle, and I'm super thankful for that connection. And I think that like, there's this idea, right? Like in the boss girl club or like boss babe and all of that niche kind of idea that there can't be room for like badasses. And it's like, it's more divisiveness, right? Like, oh, if you're not a boss babe, you're not doing shit. And it's like, no, actually, if you are actually a boss, you make room for all people, right?
That's
because
right.
to be a boss is about being a leader. And you need to be a leader of many. And that is how I feel about Tina, right? So like having her in that space in my life as a mentor, she is a leader of leaders, right? And like, so she makes space for me, like, okay, well, like I see you as a leader of leader too. So like, come on, if you're leading and I'm leading and we find more leaders, like this is how you really create that shift, is making space for more people, not like pushing people down. I'm not
100. And that's something I agree with everything you just said. And I think that's the missing link for so many women, is that while I believe this younger generation is getting it, the millennials are getting it, that it really is about collaboration, there still is something weird that's missing, where there's still a bit of competition. And I just think that's human nature. And I love that you get it, that it doesn't have to be about competition. It doesn't have to be about who has more or, you know, who's giving more. It truly is about creating space for more of us, right? Because when we make space for more of us, we all succeed.
Right.
And
not only that, oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Not only that, is that when we make more space for others, we make space within ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if I'm not expansive, that means I don't have the capacity to guide you into being expansive. There is no competition. You can't be me.
Right.
right? Like there has to be an air of that about you too. You can't be me and I can't be you. And that's the gloriousness of being individuals. And then you can do the interconnected work, right?
Yeah.
Like where you shine, I may not shine. And that's
Yeah.
awesome. Like,
Yeah.
but then I could pick up where you don't. And now everybody's little lights are like shining bright. And it's interesting you said human nature is considering like how you said like with the intro, how did we become that way? Is that actually human nature or
Mm.
is this another byproduct of colonization, right?
Ah.
Because actually human nature, we were cohesive, right? Before Christianization, before colonization, we were all indigenous to somewhere, we were
Yeah.
all tribal, we had clans, we had community. So
Yeah.
no, it wasn't human nature. Human nature has been altered by colonialist ideas.
Wow.
Human nature is to collaborate. You could fish, great. When you bring that back, I'll scale it. And
Yeah.
this one's going to cook it, right? Like colonialism and colonistic views has forced individualism. Like, so now I got to know how to fish, scale, cook, serve. I don't want to do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to. I
Yeah.
don't even like that. Like, that
Yeah.
sounds like a lot of work that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my rebuttal against that. I don't think it's human nature. I think it's human nature after it's been shifted.
Yeah. And of course, like I always say, you always get my brain popcorning. And what we've done with these habitual bad behaviors that have been adopted over time, we're using it as a scapegoat and an excuse. I just did it, right?
Yeah, you
Saying
did.
it's just human nature. It's not.
Yeah, you
And it's
did. No,
something that,
actually,
and it's
no.
excusing bad behavior when I even say it like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See? But this is what I mean by you show up in every aspect of your life, right? A lot of times when you get white women doing this work of like anti-racism, and it's also very popular, right?
Mm.
Oh, I'm an anti-racist. I'm an ally. And I'm like, Jesus, you guys just constantly need a label or a clique and a crew to belong to. And a
Mm.
lot of that comes from, again, back to colonization. You've been stripped of your humanity. You've been stripped of your language. You've been stripped of your culture. So you just want to get in somewhere and fit in.
Mm.
And like, but in that trying to do so, you exclude people, right? Like
Wow.
now you're not anti-racist. I can't talk to you. I'm canceling you. I'm an ally. And it's this like self-proclaimed grandiose idea. And I'm like, who the fuck told you you were an ally?
Right.
Like, who
Right.
told you that you're an anti-racist? Another white person who's not experienced racism? That kind of is a conundrum, don't you think?
Yeah.
So like, and it's that, right? Like it's those small insidious ways that kind of come up in our lives. Oh, it's human nature, and we dismiss it.
That's
And
right.
it's not human nature. Human
Yeah.
nature is to be connected. Human nature is to be in community. Human nature is to see what each of us can bring to the table and
Yeah.
collab.
So how did we get to this space of sort of bleaching everything out, whitewashing everything, letting go of culture entirely? I know the answer to this, but I want you to tell people the answer to that. I know
Oh,
because you've taught
I'm
me.
like, whew.
I know because you've taught me, right?
Well, thank you, thank you. Okay, a quick little historical like background to it, right? I
Yeah.
think often in America, American idealisms and American exceptionalism has us very, very confused about when history became, right? Like, oh, well, like history started here at the shores of America when it was born.
Yes.
There was nothing else before America. And I'm like, you've obviously never left America because America is the teenager of the world,
Yeah.
right? Thinks it knows everything, doesn't know enough. We are neophytes in the game.
Yeah.
So when you go back to the first beginnings of race, you're talking about the 1400s, right? Like way back before America was ever invaded, right? Because it wasn't discovered. People lived here. So when they kind of stepped out, like, right, the Romans were like, hey, we don't like it. We're going to do something about it. And they just started going around killing people, raping, pillaging, doing this and a third. And when there was a rebellion of other people that looked like them, non-melanated, they were like, oh shit, we're conquering so many people. And like, they could actually, like, now it's too much. And so they created something that would make y'all feel connected. And they created race.
Mm-hmm.
So non-melanated people became white and melanated people became black. And this is how we could subjugate these people. Like, no. We're on the same side. You don't need to hurt me. Let's hurt them. And oppress people oppress people. hurt people. Like, right? Little simple thing. You go around, the empire became so vast, right? Like what's the saying? The sun never set on the Roman Empire, or
Yeah.
all roads lead to Rome. That should explain how vast that spreading of that is, right?
Yeah.
And then they became the Roman Catholic Church. And we have Christianization, because what we call colonization in America, the rest of the world calls Christianization. Because what better way, as you're now so expansive, right? We're not thinking about the world now, right? Like, they weren't on fucking Zoom meetings like, hey, how's it going in Morocco? Still colonized? Great, right? Like, these people are traveling by boats, days,
Yeah.
months, years.
Yeah.
So how do you unify such a vast nation, right? If you follow the Catholic liturgical calendar, you could literally see the pieces and pockets of other people's spiritual
Totally.
practices,
Yeah.
right? Like, you could just see
From
bits
the
and
days
pieces.
of Constantine, right?
Right. Like,
Mhm.
you could see the Pope's outfit. You could see the particles of it's, I swear it's why they do not let anybody in the Vatican, right? Like,
Mm.
into these archives, because it's literally the history of what they've done, right? So anyway, long story short, you create one God, one nation under God, and now you unified all of these people.
Right.
And then you tell people that look like you that they have manifest destiny, right? Like, it just keeps morphing.
Yeah.
Like, you have the right to this. Those others are savages, and it keeps going and it keeps changing. But like, anything that has 40,000 different variations, that's how many different sects of Christianity there are.
Wow.
40,000
I had no
plus.
idea. Wow.
Believing in the same God and the same Son, why do we need 40,000 different ones if it's not dissonance? So basically, that's my quick little rundown in history. So at that point, you lost language, you lost culture, all the things that make culture, right?
Yeah.
Music, dress, food, language, spiritual practice. And it
Yeah.
was all taken away, and they gave you white. And you went for it. And you thought it was a good idea. And here
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
Lost
And
and confused.
love it all. And I think that what a lot of people don't realize, and they may be tuning in and they may not even understand how important this key piece is to all of this, is that culturally there isn't anything that exists in white. There's no
There is no
culture of
culture in
white.
white.
No.
Nothing. It's
Right.
not. The only culture that is white is violence. That is the culture of whiteness. And it's not even on some, because I think sometimes white people hear me say that, and which is a correct response, to be defensive. Like, what are you talking about? Right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
That's what
okay,
people hear.
well, ask yourself, right? Like, I ask people, who were you before you became white?
Hmm.
Who were you? What language did your family speak?
Yeah.
What practices did they have?
Yeah.
What food did your great grandmother cook? Like, ask yourself these questions. Like, what land did you come from?
Mhm.
Because we talk about indigenous people as if they're only the indigenous of America.
Right. Right.
Everybody's indigenous to somewhere.
Yeah.
Everybody. So every single thing that you are now awakening to and trying to aid the natives of America, right? The First Nations of America, you too were a part of a nation.
Yeah.
And if you got back to that, right? Like, that's what, for me, where it shifts from allyship, because allyship says, I can help you because I'm white and I have power.
Mhm.
Yay, let's help the Negroes. I'm like, yeah, funsies. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, focus on you. Understand, because if we don't know the why and the how that we got here, we're just going to consistently repeat it, right? Like, if you don't see what you lost, how can you really connect to what I lost?
Right.
Right? We're just the newest iteration of it, right? We're just the loudest, most accessible generation of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
everybody can hear it now, everybody can see it now, right? Like, it's televised in a major way through all
Yeah.
of these various streams. But like, if you really connected to it, you wouldn't need to be my ally. You would want to be doing liberation work, because
That's
you
right.
want to be liberated from that construct too. You
Yeah.
want to be liberated from that idea, like, oh my God, like, there's no language, there's no white language.
Right.
American English is the most bastardized, awful version
Yeah.
of the Queen's English. The
Yeah.
Brits make fun of us.
Yeah, they
Plain
do.
English.
That's right.
It's very interesting to me. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, there is no culture in that.
So let's talk about your background, because you and I are doing this project together where every Thursday we have this room called Hard Conversations. We have Tamara Johnson Shealy, who is an African American woman who is a descendant of chattel slavery. We have me, white woman, who has recently found out that her family, as recently as about a generation ago, if we want to get technical, it was 2 generations ago, were still employing slaves. And we found out, whoop, there's a bug in my room, found out that even though they were freed people in my dad's generation, they still employed them to raise my dad.
Wow.
So we've got those extremes. And then we've got this wonderful, magical woman in the middle. Tell people, if you will, a little bit about your background, because you have a lot
I
happening,
do.
which is why you bring such an incredible perspective to the conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I would be what people call here biracial, which is weird. You can't be two races because race is a construct, and that's not actually how race works. So I am multi-ethnic, right? Because I believe that Black has evolved to an ethnicity.
Mhm.
So I'm Irish and Black. And by Irish, not 1700s Mayflower, I am the granddaughter of immigrants.
Mhm.
Like my grandparents came from Ireland, they're from Sligo, um, literally in their 30s, had their children here. My mom's first generation American. So a lot of it for me was difficult too, right? When I first heard white privilege, I was like, not my family,
Mhm.
right? Like that shit is like rich white people. Like, cause you
Yeah.
get privilege and you think rich because capitalism.
Yeah.
You don't think of anything else. Like there is no other privilege, and they're damn sure ain't privilege inside of poverty. And we were poor fucking Irish immigrants, so you could not explain white privilege to me.
Yeah.
So that is kind of where I started like really trying to delve into it, and also recognizing that there's no culture within whiteness, right? Because people
Yeah.
will tell me, "Oh, so you're white and black," and I'm like, "No, I'm
Irish.
Irish and black."
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's weird, like and then I had to realize that the Irish became white. And I'm like, oh, when did that happen? Because me growing up, like, that was never like, like we always said, like, if somebody asked something, right? And I also grew up in New York City
Mm-hmm.
in a time that was still it's much more homogenized now. But I
Yeah.
grew up in like, 80s, 80s. I was born in 79. So, like, my form came in those 80s and hearing those conversations and
Yeah.
stuff. And we were very segregated by ethnicity. There were no color lines, right?
Okay.
Like it was an ethnic separation. Like I lived in an Irish neighborhood, you lived in a Dominican neighborhood, you lived in
Yep.
an Albanian neighborhood, and that was normal because people still had their culture,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like people still spoke their native tongue, cooked their native food. So like it didn't make any sense. Like these people were getting off of a boat when they came,
Yeah.
speaking their language. Like why would you move to a place where you don't speak the language, right? So we're gonna make this nice little safe enclave where we speak our language, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then I also myself am a descendant of chattel slavery, right? Like, and that's been wild, like to really conceptualize since
Yeah.
moving to the South. I am probably about an hour out from where my family was held captive.
Wow.
And I'm
Have you
like,
been? Have you been? That
no, because
would
I
be
will burn
hard.
it down. Like I can't, right? And like,
Yeah.
here's the wild part. I'll do you one better. If you guys take a moment to look up the Black Rutledges, it's like Rutdleg, I don't know,
Yeah.
Rutledges. These people literally like they kept great records. So
Okay.
like when I did my whole DNA test, this and the third, um, like you could see like, great great grandmother and this, that, and other thing, and all the children and all the children.
Yeah.
And so, what disturbed me the most in seeing this family lineage was they called my great great grandmother his wife.
Mm.
And this is another thing, like, right back to the human nature, is a captive able to consent to marriage?
No.
is a 14-year-old able to
Right.
consent to marriage?
Right.
He is a rapist.
Right.
He raped her and had children with her. She is not his wife, nor were the other 3 women that he enslaved, right? Like, so it's been a wild, that was wild
Yeah.
unpacking. So that's kind of where I kind of bring those two spaces together. And this family, why is that to look it up, is they actually meet. Girl, yes.
Really?
Girl, yes. So like the black line, like we're like the Jeffersons, like the Jefferson family of Georgia. Like,
Wow.
right, we're not nationally known, but
Yeah.
like the black Rutledge, there's even a place called Rutledge, Georgia.
No
So anyway,
kidding.
the 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 slave owners, the captures descendants meet with the descendants of the captured
Hmm.
and they eat together. So
Wow.
like it's funny that you ask, do I
Wow.
go? Because I'm like, no. Because are they ready to have the conversation at the family cookout? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because also the plantation is still in operation as a
Really?
historical site.
Okay. Got it.
So I'm confused as to why they are benefiting from that, but I am not. So
Interesting.
if I go there, we're gonna have some questions at the
Yeah.
family.
Right. Right. It's time for some hard conversations.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because if that's his wife, run me my money.
Right. Right. Okay. So on that, I want to find out a little bit about who you were as a young girl, because I know that with this really rich, culturally rich background, you had to be a really, really interesting kid. And I'm so curious who you were back then with all of this, amazing stuff happening in your home. And how did you transition to be who you are? I mean, were you always this sort of magical, wonderful, witchy being? Were you always
Yes.
this person? Really?
Honestly. So if anybody watches me or follows me, I have a 2-year-old. I know it's crazy. Yes, I am about to be 43. My husband's about to be 45. We are
Yeah.
done now. But I have a 2-year-old. Her name is Morrigan, spelled in the Irish way. She's named after the Celtic goddess, the Morrigan. And she is me. It is literally, it's that curse that your mom puts on you. One day you'll have a kid
Yeah.
just like you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my mother is dead and laughing at me. Um,
So great. Yeah.
Morrigan is absolutely me. Yes, I absolutely was this boisterous, this precarious, like these are the words, this tenacious. My mom was really good about reframing language.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Of
Because school said I was problematic, too talkative,
course.
yada yada, too
All the things.
aggressive,
Yeah.
and so I chose to stick to my mother's ideas of, she's so tenacious and precocious and boisterous.
Yeah.
Desiree is very determined.
Yes.
Desiree's very sure of herself,
Yes.
and
Certainly not
my
bossy and
father fed into
arrogant.
that.
No.
No, which definitely feeds into my little bit of narcissism that I got going on, but. Um, And my father used to say, she's not, he used to always tell me, he's like, baby, when they talk to you, you let them know I'm not conceited, I'm convinced.
Oh,
So you put those two people
that's good.
feeding my ego. And I literally just actually used that sentence to Morgan. I asked her, I said, you're so cute. Do you know you're cute? She said, yes. And I was
That
like, that's
Morgan.
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes. Just that. Yes.
Yes.
So yes,
Love it.
this was honestly always me. And as far as like, if the question is in regards to like being mixed, I didn't know that it was different until the world told me it was different, right?
Yeah.
Like this is just my mom. That's
Yeah.
just my dad. It wasn't until like damn near double digits when people started asking me,
Really?
is that really your mom? And I'm like, yeah, why would that not be my mom? Like what a
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
question to ask. I
Mhm.
never understood it. Like, but now looking back on that, to be honest, is like when I speak with white women who are making, it has to be an intentional choice. When you are going
Yeah.
to have black children, because that's what race in America does, right?
Mhm.
It erases everything else about you.
Mhm.
And it made me a black child.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I never knew I was a black child.
Yeah. I
The world
remember
let me
this reminds me of when my sister was raising my niece. The two families were both very engaged and very involved, and everybody got along and everybody lived close. So she was always just getting this really culturally rich upbringing. And it was when she went to kindergarten, first day of kindergarten, and I was over at my sister's house. Actually, we were at my our mom's house, and my sister picked her up, brought her home to grandma's, and our niece walked in, or my niece walked in, and she goes, "Look, Auntie Jen, I'm Black and white."
Oh
And
my God. Like, how beautifully precious.
But we were all like, what? Right? Because we never had to fully explain that. And apparently her teacher said to her, "Oh, look at you, you're Black and white," and was showing the outside. And it was, I got to be honest with you, while it was cute, it was really an invasion, because it was somebody on the outside telling her at 5 who she was.
Different. Yep. Right. And so I think I could almost, I'd bet money that she was in a predominantly white space, right?
The school was.
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. Like, I know, like you just said, your family was multicultural, right?
Yeah.
But so for me, I grew up in the hood, right? Like in the South Bronx, and it was predominantly Blacks or Puerto Ricans. Mm-hmm. So like my mother and like one other white lady literally lived in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So there's a completely different space inside of that community, right? I don't look different. Mm-hmm. Like at best, I look like either a Puerto Rican.
I was going to say, did you get Puerto Rican? Yeah.
Oh, everybody. My whole life. I still to this day, people are like, "Oh, you're Puerto Rican." Yeah. And then my accent, right? Yeah. And there's more Puerto Ricans in the Bronx per capita than there are in Puerto Rico. So, yeah, right.
Stop it.
Swear to God. So more often than not, like I look like, right? Like white people make that difference, right? So like it, like that's what I'm saying. And to be honest, now that we said that, that correlation makes sense. When I said double digits, it was after my father died and my mom moved back to the Irish neighborhood. Thank you. Unlocking that memory. Yeah. Was when I was like, why would you ask? Is that really my mom? Like nobody, it was never questioned until I was in a white space. There you go. Wow. Thank you. Unlock that memory. Yeah. And I'm like, kindergarten. Wow, that's pretty early. But like, it depends on where you go, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was
and it was the teacher for her that did it. It wasn't other kids. It was the teacher. Yeah.
Interesting.
Really bizarre. So I know that you're this incredibly deep, fearless, and if not fearless, certainly just the most brave and courageous woman, you know.
I like that better. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with fear, and I'm scared a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Often.
So how did you sort of navigate when you were young, when people were having, kids, teachers, neighbors, whatever, were trying to put you in a box? Were you this courageous as a kid to sort of plant your flag when you were little?
Oh yeah. Because like, okay, well, then when we moved to an Irish neighborhood, my Aunt Deidre, I love her. She's still alive. And that's my baby. Cool. My Aunt Deidre lived there, right? So we moved in with my Aunt Deidre. Like, and like, so when people would ask me a question, I'm like, yeah, obviously, right? And my family is absolutely like kick-ass, right? Like stereotypes come up for a reason because they're often based in truth, right? So my family was definitely the fighting Irish. So like, we fought. Like if it was a problem, like if you have a problem with what I'm saying, like I could just punch you in your mouth.
Right.
From this entire conversation. So, right, like I grew up in those days, like where punching somebody in the mouth was absolutely the answer to most things. So, yes. Like
there's the answer. Yeah.
Like that's
Okay. So
like, obviously she's my mother. Didn't I say she was my mother? That would be my like.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do really important work in unlocking people's fears, desires, drives, secrets, inhibitions. Like you do this whole work with people. And I'm curious if this is what you always wanted to do. Did it just sort of come to you? Because what you do is really disruptive, but it's really healing. Like there's this really interesting space that you occupy that is hardcore bone grinding truth that creates freedom, which is something that is very different than the slow process of therapy or something.
Burn
right?
It down.
Yeah. So,
yes. But that's liberation, right? So like, yes. Now, younger, it would be called like loudmouth or smart ass, right? Like,
Mhm.
I've always been an agitator. It has
Have
not
you?
always been healthy.
Okay.
Um, because I'll do things to get under your skin, right? Like, I was like the person that's like spitballs
Yeah.
and like, like,
Yeah.
so like, I think that I've transmuted that energy into something, and I am a disruptor. I am an agitator, and I look forward to that. And I think the thing that makes me unique is that, but I'm here to help you heal, right? Like, sometimes you have to break the bone to reset it.
Yeah.
I'm also not afraid of destruction. Like I said, I grew up in the South Bronx in Hunts Point.
Hmm.
Like, if anybody Googles pictures of that, you could fully and utterly understand. Like, I know the idea of like rose out of the concrete kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So I think like all of my life's happenings, right? Like, ultimately, what it comes down to is I really like who I am, and
Yeah.
I've been through hell, right? My father was an addict and an alcoholic. He was physically abusive to my mom, but they
Mhm.
stayed together and they went through ups and downs. During his passing, my mother became verbally and emotionally abusive. This
Mm.
caused me to act out. I went through foster care. I was locked up a juvenile delinquent, came out. I was a teen mom. Like, I went through all of these things, but I really love the human that I am.
Yeah.
So I don't try to shy away from pain. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not to glorify pain. It's just like, and it's not like toxic love and light. Like, out of everything is some good stuff.
Yep.
It's like, I really like who I am.
Mhm.
And it's because I've faced the pains and the
Yeah.
truths and moved through it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can say all of those things without shame, without fear.
Hmm.
So my goal is to talk to people and have them feel the same way. And to answer your question, did I always want to do this? Yes. I
Yeah.
didn't know the capacity. People, when I was younger, used to tell me, "Oh, you should be a lawyer," and that was because of my smart ass mouth, right? And I'll debate anything.
Yeah.
Um, but as an adult, I was like, I want to be a therapist because I
Mhm.
need to understand, how does this work?
Mhm.
Like, and that catalyst for me was when my dad passed, right? Like, so much of my life shifted then, having a day in, day out, two parent home. And my mom lost her shit.
Mm.
Like, she went from this like really amazing mom, like constantly there,
Mhm.
holding you up, this, that, and the third, to, like I say, becoming woefully verbally abusive, emotionally
Mm.
abusive. And I was like, why? Like, I could never understand. So I think that that was the seed that was planted for me.
Yeah.
Why? And how does trauma inform us?
Mm.
Like, right? Like, it shapes us.
Yeah.
So what happened there that made her so far gone, right?
Yeah.
And then, just like with then what happened to me, because I wasn't that kid either,
Yeah.
right? Before
Yeah.
this happened, I was a completely different child. And now I'm doing these things. So yes, I've read enough books and
Yeah.
taken enough free courses to have like 5 PhDs, like,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
amazing to me how life happens to you and it shapes you.
Totally. And when I think about getting to this stage in life, whatever that is, we don't get here without trauma. We don't get here without,
We're all suffering.
yeah, I was just going to say cracks in the veneer and dings in our armor. I mean, you just don't get here without that. And
No.
then you start looking at what goes on culturally, what goes on systemically. You start looking at programming and the biases that are created, right? When
Yes.
you're not even paying attention, and yet you're getting that download. And so I would love for you to talk about what you do, because for me, when I think about you, there are so many layers of who you are. Like, when I started looking into you, I found you, I think, on Instagram, but then
Oh,
I
I thought it was
realized,
TikTok.
and then was it TikTok first?
It was TikTok, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
No, you did. I'm lying. You found me on Instagram
And
and
then I
I
went to
sent you to my
TikTok.
TikTok, and I was like,
Yeah.
are you sure
Yeah.
you want me to talk with you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Watch
And,
those
and
first.
that's it. Yeah. And so then I asked you to come in and be a part of this. But the more I started to get into your community, and I realized I'm not deep, deep, deep in your world, but every step I took, it was like, my God, my God, my God. Like, how do when I look at my life, when I look at people around me, how do we not go through the steps with you to be whole? And that's truly how I feel. Like, how could I have never have gone through these steps and come out as a whole adult? And the answer is I can't. Like, I have to be able to go through this. And I realize I'm talking in circles, but I have to be able to ask myself these questions and come up with these answers and dig that
Right.
deep and go through that pain and acknowledge those patterns in order to be a whole adult. And when I started to look into your world, I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's why she is this magical being, because you've done all this work.
Yeah.
That is hard shit.
Yes.
So tell us about that, because as you can see, it gets me all flustered because I'm so into who you are and
I
what
dig
you
it.
do.
I dig it. And it was, let me tell you, it was so difficult to figure out my own title, right? Like when I was like, okay, I'm doing this work, because like for like the past almost 17 years now, I've had I've done cleaning work, right? It's always been fast money. Like I can do things with it, make it, and it worked with my schedule, right?
Yep.
I wanted to be home with my kid. I have an elder child. I wanted to be able to drop her off at school, pick her up. And like, so I was like, okay, I need this to work with my life. So when I was like, I'm going to transition into doing this, and I'm like, fuck, how do I transition from being the cleaning lady, right? And like all the stigma that can go with that. Let's talk about that.
Sure.
And to like, here, let me fix your life. And so then back to like what you say on how I analyze and deconstruct. I think that's what it is I do deconstruction.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I go into people's homes, I make it all better, and I clear spaces. I'm like, it's just a different version of that.
Yeah.
Like, right? Instead of your physical home, you are your first home. So now I go inside of you, clear it out, and give you clean spaces. Like,
yes.
So it's literally the same energetic field. It's just a different title, right? Like,
yes.
And we get caught up in titles because of capitalism, right? Like, oh, well, like, I'm not listening to the cleaning lady's advice. And I'm like, yeah, but I could clean up your soul too, pimpin', make a choice.
And you've been sitting with me for an hour every single time I see you weekly, asking me to figure out your life, I imagine.
Right. Yeah. And
after we've cleaned the house. Yeah.
Yeah. And no, yeah. No, people, if they were home, forget about it. Like I know all of, and it was so sacred. It was such sacred work, right? Like I knew so much about them because I'm in their home. Yeah. And so now they're in their comfortable space, right? Like they're home. So they don't need to be uncomfortable. So the shit people tell, like the cleaning lady or probably the nanny is wild what they share. And I really took that as such sacredness. Like I knew when people were trying to conceive, I knew when people were getting divorced before their closest people. Yeah. Right. And I was like, this is such sacred work.
It is.
And I take that into the counseling that I do too, right? But it's also me realizing, like, you see how I show up here, and I show up very unconventionally and I speak unconventionally because I realize that the magic that you're speaking of, why people would open me more than their therapist of 10 years is because they weren't performing. They were home. They were comfortable. So if I can get people at that base level, right? If I'm talking like normal people, if I'm talking like they talk behind the doors, if I'm not code switching or doing anything, the more authentic I am, the more authentic you can show up as. Yeah. And so that's the magic of that, right? Like I do all of that work because it's like, I can't ask you to do what I haven't done. And people will only meet you to the levels in which they met themselves. And I've met myself in the depths of hell. So let's go.
Yeah. So you do therapy work, you tell me all the things.
Yeah. I'm not a therapist.
No, I know. But sorry.
I do counseling work. Yes, I do one-on-one work, right? I do I call it like whole life coaching, right? Because it's literally individualized for you. So like if you came and was like, I'm having blocks, because it's all tied into the same systems, right? Like I work at deconstructing systems. Yeah. What system is running? Let's deconstruct that and let's put in a new system. And that'll work, right? So like all the systems come down to colonization, capitalism, and all of that kind of stuff. So it doesn't matter if you want to come to me about marriage advice, parenting advice, I want to open up a new business. It doesn't matter, right? It's whole life coaching. Yeah. So I do coaching and counseling. Like I'm an actual, I'm an ordained minister. Can you?
Yeah. Right. I love that so much too.
I know, it's wild. fucking wild. God
Yeah.
be like, yes, turn up, turn up.
Yeah.
So yes, I do one-on-one work. I do community work, which I love. I have like the Makeshift Happen community because a lot of the reasons why I shied away from a therapy path is because it's too individualistic for
Mhm.
me. I
Mhm.
love therapy, right? I'm in therapy. I have an active therapist. This is not a like bashing therapy,
Yeah.
but there's nothing alongside that, right? So like now, like a lot of my friends are actual therapists and they literally send clients my way because they're like, in conjunction with therapy, you need this. So for me, I see my work as bridge work, right? Even on my
Yeah.
website, it says that like, this is your bridge between like your conventional church, right? Because like that's all that people really had was
Mhm.
like church community, or
Yeah.
they were just extradited from the church because they're the devil, and like go to a therapist. But what's in the between? What's in the betwixt? What's in the dark spaces,
I
right?
love
Like
that. Mhm.
that's shadow work, right? Like so that's what I specialize is in shadow work. So
Yeah.
in between, while you're searching in the darkness, that's where I exist. Like
Yeah.
right there.
And
I love
those systems are so powerful, whether we're talking about religion, ethnicity, culture, just the system of being, an employed person, seen as, gender, sexuality. I
it's
mean, it
all
just
a
keeps
construct.
going and going and going, all of them. And it's, as you were talking, I was thinking about something that was part of the conversation you and I were having before this and about showing up authentically and all of that. I am going through the process right now of getting a sleeve. And I
Whoa, I have one.
I know you do.
I love it.
And everybody keeps saying, because it's basically a garden on my arm, everybody
Yeah.
keeps saying, what are you going to do for work? I mean, what are you going to, I'm going to walk out on stage with a sleeve.
Oh fuck yes.
I'm
Oh please do.
Why wouldn't I? Right.
Oh
There are
please
times
do.
I realize I'll have to keep the jacket on so no one sees it. And I get all that, right, to make
Yeah.
somebody happy somewhere. But I I need to be able to do what I want to do. And the funny thing is, and this is where I'm going, I just read an article yesterday about a Fortune 500 VP who was encouraged to take her jacket off by the CEO for their corporate pictures. And she is fully sleeved on both arms. And she's a VP and was told by her CEO, Fortune 500, take your jacket off. That's not who you are.
I
And I was
love that.
like, okay, this
But
is
that's seeing
authenticity.
humanity. That is seeing
That's
humanity, right?
humanity.
Like, and then we have to think about like I always go back, like I said, the systems. What how many indigenous people tattoos were beautiful. They
Mhm.
told stories, right? Like you have the Maori, you have a few different ones I can't think of off the top of my head. But these told stories. And that's what
Mhm.
tattoos do now, right? Like we've taken that, like my tattoo is a bunch of quotes that I love, right? Like, and
Cool.
I'm like, they imbue me with magic. It says goddess, alchemist, it has all of these really important quotes that have shifted my life. And I'm like,
Love.
these tattoos tell a story. I have one on my toe. It's a rose because I was in England and like it's an English rose, right? Like it's your story to tell and your body, you should be able to do whatever you want to do with it. And when we don't deconstruct that, right? Like we're only dealing with it on surface level. Like, cause now what'll happen is that story will get retold as like, like this man gave this powerful woman permission to do this, that, and the third. And we'll deal with misogyny and we'll deal with patriarchy and we'll deal with boss babe badness. And it's like, God damn, you still missed the point.
Yeah.
You still missed the point. Like even thinking that they're bad is still like something so gross
Mhm.
and wrought inside of colonization and a loss of culture.
Mhm.
Like unpack that
Yeah.
and let it all go. And people should show up as authentically as they can. And it should have absolutely zero tether to their survival, right? Because, like, when
Yeah.
you're talking about people should lose jobs for having a certain look or talking a certain way, we
Yeah.
didn't ask for money. Okay, that shit was created, and now it's the intercessory to basic needs not even
Mm.
being met.
Mm.
I didn't ask for money.
Yeah.
Like people were living for centuries, thousands and thousands of years without the need of money.
Yeah.
So now it's just a control tactic. I'm super
Yeah.
glad that she was able to do that. And I
Yeah.
love that you're getting a tattoo.
Yeah.
Please do.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm already starting and it's very exciting.
love it.
So I want to transition here
Sure.
And I want to ask you some speed round questions, because even though you are really, really open about who you are, what you believe, and all of that authenticity leads, I want to ask you some questions because it gives us a chance to get to know you just a little bit better. So I'm going to throw them at you. You just tell me what comes to mind. And if you don't have something, we can pass. It's not a big deal. And I don't need an explanation either. I just want quick speed round answers. Good?
Yeah.
Okay. First one is easy. Who is your favorite woman in history? It can be now, it can be someone who's, 100 years ago, whatever. Who's
My
your
mother?
favorite? Oh, of course it's your mother. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite place that you've ever been to?
Turkey.
Do you know how many people tell me that? That's interesting.
Turkey is absolutely, I was in Kushadasi, to be very specific, right?
Okay.
Like, 'cause it could be, as I said that, like, as if it's not. Kushadasi, Turkey was absolutely magical. If
Really?
you have, and anybody ever has a chance to go to any ancient land,
Yeah.
and like, God, it was so grounding and so magical. Turkey.
Wow. Very cool. I have heard from at least 10 people who've told me that Turkey is the most diverse country you will ever go to. And every part of it is stunning. It's just, if you're in the deserts, if you're at this,
It's glorious.
around I don't even know Turkey's, sort of setup and makeup where they are, but I just hear everybody rave about it. So I definitely have to. I think they're on the ocean too, right? Turkey's on
They
the
are. And Kushadasi was more like, it's along the Aegean Sea. Put it.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't know if
And
it's an
there's
ocean.
mountains as
I'm
well.
not geographically
Yeah.
sound, right?
Yeah,
But
I
like,
don't
we were there and we were able to actually boat ride over to Samos, Greece. It was just, and there's just so much history. There was just so much history in those ancient lands, right? Like that.
Very
That's
cool.
like before the time of the creation of like God as one. It was
Yeah.
beautiful.
Love,
Amazing.
love, love. Wow. So if you were given $1 million and you could give it away to an organization or do something with it to help humanity. So you're not just going to go out and buy a house for yourself. In other words, you're not really spending. It's more of an investment in something or somewhere. What would you do with that?
I'd invest in my children.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Because I'm raising them to be liberators. So I would trust them with the investment to do the right thing for the community at whole.
Okay. I'll take it. What is your favorite book or podcast of all time? You don't need both, just one or the other.
I thought about that, right? And I am like, the Four Agreements is hands down, right? Like, hands down. Read it over a decade ago, still read it, still come back to it.
Yeah.
Those four principles are just, yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you, that one comes up a lot on this show.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The legs that book has, the wisdom and soul movement that it has within those pages is remarkable.
You know why? It's steeped in culture. That's generational wisdom passed down over and over and over again. It's like steeping a tea bag.
Yeah.
So it's not diluted. It is generational. That's why it moves and stirs the soul so deeply.
I need to read it again. It's been a long time. It's probably been 5 years since I've read it. There's another one that I need to read again too, and I can't think of the name of it. And I want to say that it's also Paulo Coelho, but it is
Soul Tech Wisdom.
No, I want to say it's the one with the shepherd.
The Alchemist. That is an amazing. Please read that. Let's read it together. We should do the book club, like, because I want to do the book club in the community. Let's all read it together.
Yes. Yes. That book definitely is a life changer too.
That is an amazing book.
Awesome. Yeah. What's a quirky or wacky fact about you that people may not know?
I don't have one. Like, what? I really don't. I don't.
Because you're not a secret keeper.
No, like, so, like, I mean, I really don't. No, I'm not a secret keeper. Yeah. Like, people are like, you're a truth teller. I'm like, yeah, like, that's like really, I don't have a quirky fact. Like,
okay. Gosh,
I don't.
You need to hang out with me more. I've got lots of quirky things about me. Like, I'm
not quirky.
I throw it out there a lot, but like, I've got tori, which is bone that's under my teeth. I'm sorry. Here are my teeth.
Yeah.
But behind it, I've got this big white protruding bone where my tongue lays on it. So I've got these weird tori. So it's just
interesting.
It's in there. But the point is, people Huh?
I'm looking. I
You see
see.
that?
Yeah.
That's
So
bone.
interesting.
Yeah, I know. And then I've got an extra rib on my left side.
Yeah. See, I don't have none of that cool shit
So
going on.
I feel like yeah, and I've never broken a bone. Well, unless you count like a toe. I did a toe, but like I've never
I've never broke. Okay, well then that's one. I've never
Okay.
broken a bone in my
Okay.
life. Like,
Cool.
and I was like terribly active, like jump off of something.
Yeah.
Like I was a daredevil, car racing, all of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
That's
And
an interesting fact about you.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I've never broken a bone.
Okay. And the fact that you were a daredevil in race cars and all that, that's
Yeah.
also interesting.
Well, then there you go. There we go.
Okay. So if you could have a superpower, what would it be for you?
Flying.
Hmm.
I want to go anywhere I want to go whenever I want to.
Yeah. What's your most treasured item?
My mom's degree.
Say it again.
My mother's degree. I have her. She graduated, and if you knew all, hence back to the first thing, why everything she faced in her life, like there was a point in time where I hated my mother, right? Like I told you,
Mm,
emotional abuse, this and the
sure.
third, and I did not want to be anything like her. And on my Instagram story, I speak about in one of my lives on Instagram, it's there stored, and I talk about how I've awakened to the fact that I'm just like my mother, and I
Mm,
fucking love it. And
love it.
yeah, so it's her degree because what she did to get that degree, what she went through, saw it through, and got her degree. I remember her always trying to attain that throughout my childhood, and her finally accomplishing that. That's
Yeah.
my most valuable treasure.
Gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, thanks.
Such a good answer. That's a great answer. And yeah, that's a goodie. Okay. What's your theme song? So when you're walking on stage and there are 30,000 people screaming your name and you're there to change the world, what song are you strutting onto that stage to?
You Don't Know by Jay-Z.
Jay-Z.
I love Jay-Z.
So, because you're an 80s baby.
Well, not only that, is that I'm gonna do you one better. Is that yes, I'm
He's
an 80s
ours. You know
baby.
that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
he is.
Mhm.
And that's fine. But not only am I an 80s baby, I'm a New Yorker. So I grew up in that
Oh, he's
same type
really
of
yours.
environment. Right.
Mhm.
And not only that, I grew up in New York pre-Giuliani where you could do rooftop parties and all of that. I literally remember this man handing out his tape on the train and
No.
like bootleg ass parties. So just to see
He's really
who
yours. Oh my gosh.
he's my soul keeper, right? Like
Oh,
if I can meet anybody in life and not even like I don't like, hey man, let me just shake your hand and tell you you're a fucking inspiration. You made me believe I could do it.
love it.
You don't
My
know.
gosh.
Baby.
I had no idea that he was even doing that. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Hustle.
that used to be my theme song on my phone, but now I have Apple and I don't know how to make theme songs on there. But when I was an Android user, that was my ringtone.
Got it.
When
Got it.
ringtones were a thing in the 2000s.
Yes, they were big. They were
Yeah, they
definitely
were
big.
huge. They were
Yes.
huge. That was
All
my
right.
ringtone.
So, what is one big thing you want to accomplish in your career specifically before you're done with all this?
Legacy.
Mm,
I want to leave a legacy
mhm,
and for the world,
mhm,
right? Like if I could just leave behind change, like if my legacy is about just showing up and doing something different, that's what I
mhm.
want.
So, right now, you're
That's what I
doing
want.
a lot of that,
Yeah,
even in your social spaces. You are on TikTok, and I'm going to give you a chance to tell everybody where, but
yeah, yo.
talk about what you do in those videos, what's coming in those videos. Like even the podcast, like you've got a documentary coming up. I mean, you've got all these things that are actually coming together right
I
now.
know. It's so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That are,
it's happening.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what? That's
totally.
so wild.
Stuff
It's so
that
wild.
most people never get to do. You're
Yeah.
actually getting asked to be the center of those, energetic spaces. And so talk a little bit about some of the things that you have coming up. But I'm not looking for you to necessarily talk about your websites and all that. I mean, just
Yeah.
talk about how you already are building that legacy so that people know what you're doing and
Sure.
how important that is.
I think that the biggest part of my legacy is authenticity, right? And like so on my TikTok, I have a different model for how I show up on my TikTok, right? I don't I don't look for things to create, right? Like I don't like I'm not like, ooh, what trend is going on? I
Mhm.
literally have a conversation similar to my podcast, right? Like it's like everyday conversations with everyday people things, right? Like so on my TikTok, I'll say what's on my mind. Usually it's about, culture, colonization, just like connecting things, right? Like one of my TikToks we were talking about low wages and like, oh, and I'm like, okay, well, in a system that was created for free labor, where the fuck did you think we were gonna go?
Mhm.
Like it's a system built on wanting the most for nothing.
Yeah.
So 725 seems like a stretch for
Yeah.
them. Like,
Right.
so like I'll post something like that, like what my thought of the day kind of thing, and then just converse back and forth with people
Mhm.
like that have questions like wait that doesn't make sense or like can you explain that deeper and I'm like sure these are just my thoughts like and
Mhm.
that's pretty much I'm okay with being wrong, I'm okay with
Mhm.
being challenged, so like that's the work that I do is like
Yeah.
having conversations because inside of this system um we have also been taught that people's voices that matter are those that make the most money or
Mm.
have the highest degrees, and
Mhm.
it's still a system of like that like these social barriers, and I'm like the guy on the corner that's like houseless and drunk has some
Got a
real
lot to
shit to
say.
say, a
Mhm.
lot to say, and lived a lot of life,
Yeah.
and that's worthy of being heard. So that's pretty much what I do in all of my spaces
I
is I
love
just
that.
hear people and I trust their lived experiences and then
Yeah.
I connect it to the system.
Yes. Yes. Amazing. All right. Here's my last speed round question.
So
Actually, no, I've got two more. First one is, what's the best? I already know what you're going to say. I just know it from our conversation. What's the best word to describe you?
authentic.
Knew it. Yes, because we've said that word like 25 times. And
Great, because I
so
think it's the best one.
yeah, it's a great word. And it's exactly who you are. Yeah. Did
And
you light up another cigarette?
well, no, not yet, because I need a second cup of coffee to go with that cigarette.
Got
You like,
it.
you like my thing? It says, "How's that working for you?"
There you go.
But I think that authentic, because what it is like, let's say you say, because some people have said, oh, you're a truth teller or you're a world changer. And it's like, but that still puts you in a box, right? Like tomorrow, I may not want to change the world. I may want to be like, fuck all of this, shut it all down. I'm just going to be,
Mhm.
my husband's wife, my kid's mom, and just
Mhm.
like fade off into obscurity, right? And I think that if I kind of put myself in a box that's outside of that, then you're forced into something, right? Like, so
Mm.
yes, great, but I'm changing the world with my authenticity.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, if I don't want to do that, I'm going to be authentic to that. Like, no,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this no more.
Yeah.
And that's
So
my feeling.
my partner, John, he always says, look, I'm a dynamic person. You
I
wouldn't
love that.
like me if everything I said in the past is the only thing you're going to get from me in the future. I'm a
Right.
dynamic person. I change my opinions. I change my views. I'm learning constantly. And so I love that. I love
Yes.
not being forced into a box and then having to feel some guilt, which is what you teach people not to feel because you're going to pivot and go in a different direction. Right. So
Right. Right. Yeah.
that,
Release shame. You're human.
mhm,
I love the word dynamic, right?
mhm,
Because like I'll say multifaceted or but
mhm.
a dynamic is absolutely a brilliant way. And
Yeah.
that's the human experience.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling dynamic, you're not having a human experience. And
Yes.
that's problematic, right? If
Yes.
somebody pulls up tweets or like Facebook posts for me 12 years ago, fuck, not the same person. And I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah,
Like I
you
was
should
authentic to
be.
what my beliefs were then. Like,
Yes.
yeah, I said it.
Yeah. 100.
And
100. I've got things that
yeah,
well, we talk about it in the hard conversations room. I mean, I've got things in my
yeah.
past that I think, oh, so cringy, but
Oh
that's
God,
the
I
journey of the
cringe.
work, right? Whatever it
Yes.
is, whatever
That's
the
a
work
journey
is.
of humanity,
That's my
right?
point.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's what this is about. It's about
Yeah.
getting back to your humanity, right?
Mhm.
I cringe at 18-year-old me in
Mhm.
sociology class and what I
Mhm.
defended. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh,
Yeah.
God, thank God we couldn't be recorded then.
Yeah. Right. Right. Oh,
Dear Lord, I would have been on Twitter and everywhere. I would have been canceled before I
100%.
started. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Canceled before it was started.
Like it was oh my God. It was
Yeah. Oh my
fucking
gosh.
awful. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I get that. So, last question. When I'm really, really old, I hope to see. Finish that sentence for me.
I hope to see the world that I'm creating.
Mm.
I hope to sit back and see that. I hope to see humanity
Mhm.
in every person. I hope that every single person that I touch in any sort of way is able to see the humanity in another.
I love it. I love it. So where can people find you, Des? You are such
Um,
a force. I know people are
Everywhere.
going to want to look for you.
Okay. Well, Desiree B Stevens is my website, and it's my goal to just kind of keep everything there. So you'll be able to find my community there. You'll be able to find my podcast there. You could find my IG there. You could find my TikToks. Everything is going to be funneled through there. So
Mhm.
I would just say
Awesome.
head over to the website,
And
and
it's
all that I'm
.com,
doing
right?
is there. Yes, DesireeBStevens.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you want to hang out with Des and I every single week, you can also find us on TikTok Thursday night, 7 p.m.
Clubhouse,
Eastern.
Clubhouse.
Sorry. What did I just say?
You said TikTok.
TikTok. I don't know why. Yeah, sorry. It's because I was thinking of yours, maybe. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
Clubhouse. Yes, thank you for catching that. You can
Yeah.
catch us on Clubhouse every single Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yes.
We have this room that's called Hard Conversations, White Women, Black Women, Let's Talk. And it's a space where we can share experiences, we can learn, we can do better, we can hopefully start moving into a direction of working to support one another so that all women are equal and are being paid equitably and are being heard and understood so that we can build this bridge together. And we'd love to have you join us if you want to come in every Thursday. We've been doing it for a long time now. I don't even remember anymore,
Yeah.
maybe nine months or something, long
Okay.
time. The other thing is I want to make sure before we go, Des, that I talk a little bit about the sponsor of
Oh
this
yeah.
program. And, I have to tell you that I was on Facebook and no, actually I was on Instagram now that I say that. And I'm really, really focused on making sure that I highlight Black women in business. And I think that's important because
It
these
is.
are the most highly educated demographic in our country
I'm
who
trying to
are
tell you.
still only getting paid about 60 cents to every dollar, who have to work an entire 8 months longer just to meet what white women are making. I mean, the reality of what's happening with Black women and the lack of
Wild.
equity is insane. So as I'm putting something up, I meet this woman who has this company called Nidella. And Nidella.com, Nydella, is a clothing company. And this clothing brand is about creating a legacy for the next generation of women. And they're all about creating art in clothing for women who want to believe that all things are possible and that it's never too late to start a new chapter in life. So I'm wearing one of the Nidella shirts right now, and it says support, empower, and lead fearlessly. And I love their shirts. I love their designs. They've got sweatshirts and t-shirts and colors and all the things. And so if you're interested in getting a shirt or sweatshirt from Nidella, it's all these different really cool sayings about being fearless and empowered and strong. And so I want all of you, first of all, to go to Nidella.com. But secondly, I want to make sure that I thank Nidella for sponsoring this episode. I'm grateful for you. I love my stuff. And I wish you all the best. So Des, as for you and I, mwah, love you dearly. I'm so excited that our
I love you too,
paths
Jen.
just seem to keep crossing in really interesting ways, right?
In the best ways.
Oh,
Honestly, I
yeah.
am. You won't really fully understand the full gratitude that I have, and I'm like so thankful that the universe has connected us because it's been just absolutely amazing and
Mm.
supportive since the first inbox. It's
Mm.
like a love
Yay.
story, right? We fell
Yeah,
in love over a DM.
we did. We did.
We did. We fell in love over a DM. Say thank you for DMing me.
You're
Um,
welcome. And I just am so excited to see what this year is going to bring. I feel like I told you this last night in text. There's so much energy around you right now. I feel
it's
like the world's
wild.
getting it and it's all laser beaming to you right now. So,
Yeah,
I knew you when.
I know. I know. But see, I am that person though. I am that person. So don't worry about it. Because remember, I grew up in the hood. You never forget
Right.
those.
That's right. You don't
When you
forget.
poor, you don't forget those that you starve with,
That's
period.
right.
So that's kind of in part of my culture.
That's right. Well, I'm grateful for you. Thank you for spending all this time. I wanted everybody to get all the stuff we could sort of pull out of you, because I think the world needs their own Desiree. And I know
Oh,
that, no, I really believe that. And I felt that the minute I started talking to you, let me change that. The minute I started watching you, I was like, what in the world is happening here? Like, it was just energy through the, the phone or the computer, whatever. And the more I've gotten to know you over this last year, I just feel like everybody needs a Desiree. Like, everybody needs you. I want everybody to know who you are and what you do. And so I'm just grateful that you decided to hang with me for longer than normal on this one.
it was a pleasure.
All right, my friend.
Always.
Well, I know we'll be talking soon, but much love to you and to everybody out there. We are grateful that you spent some time with us, and we will see you next week on the next episode in the, of course, Her Story Collaborative TV podcast and webcast. All right, everybody. See ya. Take care.